The crew of the starship Discovery had been traveling for months, scanning deep space for signs of new life and unexplored worlds. But what they found one cold, dark day in the farthest reaches of the galaxy was not a new world but a ship. It was ancient. Its shape was unlike anything the crew had ever seen, twisting and shifting in ways that defied logic. The ship was massive, made of materials that no one could identify, and it radiated an energy that felt both terrifying and intriguing. Captain Sarah Winters stood on the bridge, her fingers lightly touching the controls. "What do you think it is?" asked her first officer, Lieutenant James Ford, his eyes fixed on the holographic image of the ship. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her voice filled with a mix of excitement and caution. "But we're going to find out." The ship was dormant. There was no sign of life aboard it, yet the energy readings were off the charts. With a sense of nervous anticipation, Sarah ordered the ship to move closer. The closer they got, the more strange things became. Lights flickered in the distance. They were near. And then, without warning, a loud hum echoed through the ship's hull. The Discovery shook as a deep, low sound vibrated through the air. "What the hell was that?" Ford asked, his face pale. "Something inside activated," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the unease growing in her chest. "Prepare for anything." They docked the Discovery with the strange vessel. As they stepped off the ramp, the crew couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. It was dark inside, but their flashlights revealed strange markings on the walls, glowing softly. The air was cold and still. There was no sound except for the soft click of their boots on the metal floor. They walked deeper into the ship. It felt like they were walking through a maze of unfamiliar halls and rooms. Then, they found the core of the ship, a large, pulsating crystal. It shimmered with an eerie light, and as they approached it, the hum grew louder. Ford stepped forward and, without thinking, touched the crystal. The moment his hand made contact, the whole ship shook violently. Lights flashed on and off. A piercing sound filled the air, and the crew stumbled back, gripping their heads as if something were crushing their minds. Then, everything stopped. The silence was deafening. For a moment, the crew was dazed. But when they regained their senses, they noticed something strange. The laughter. The joy that had always been present in their lives gone. At first, they didn't understand. It was subtle at first, just a feeling of heaviness in the air. But soon, they realized it. They couldn't laugh. No one could. Not even the most ridiculous jokes or silly situations could make them smile. And it wasn't just them. The communication systems of the ship began to crackle, picking up signals from planets and space stations all over the galaxy. Everywhere, people were experiencing the same thing. The galaxy was silent. The universal sound of laughter had vanished. "What happened?" Sarah asked, her voice shaking. "I don't know," Ford replied, his eyes wide with disbelief. "But we've done something. Something terrible." The crew spent the next several hours searching the ship for answers. They found ancient recording stories of the ship's creators, a long-lost species that had built the vessel to harness and control the energy of laughter itself. The recordings revealed that the crystal was not just a power source, but a weapon designed to silence entire civilizations by stealing their joy. But they had activated it by mistake. They had unleashed a power that no one could control. And now, it was spreading. As they looked out into space, they saw the ripple of silence reaching farther and farther. The entire galaxy was being drained of its laughter, its joy. "We have to stop it," Sarah said, determination in her voice. But stopping it wouldn't be easy. The ship's core was too powerful. No one knew how to reverse the process. The crew tried everything, hacking into the ship's systems, using their own tech to disrupt the power, but nothing worked. The silence was spreading faster than they could act. Time was running out. The crew could feel it. The longer they stayed, the more it felt like something inside them was changing too. They were losing their own joy. The very thing that made them human. Ford sat down, his head in his hands. "How do we fix this, Captain?" Sarah looked at him, her eyes filled with the same sense of hopelessness. "I don't know. But we can't give up." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, They found a solution, a way to reverse the process. But it came with a terrible price. The energy that powered the ship could only be contained by one person, one soul. And that person would never be able to laugh again. They would sacrifice their happiness to restore the galaxy's joy. Sarah knew what she had to do. She stepped forward, her hand resting on the crystal. As she felt its cold, pulsating energy, she made the hardest decision of her life. "I'll do it," she said. "I'll sacrifice my laughter to save the galaxy." With a final, painful touch to the crystal, Sarah unleashed a wave of energy that shot across the galaxy. The laughter returned. People smiled, joked, and laughed once more. But in the process, Sarah's world became silent. She never laughed again. But she knew she had saved the universe from losing its joy forever. And that was enough. The discovery returned to Earth, but Sarah would never be the same. The galaxy was laughing again, but her sacrifice would never be forgotten. The last joke was theirs to tell. And Sarah knew it would echo through the stars for eternity. The Starlight Voyager drifted through the endless black of space, its engines humming softly, as Captain Ethan Carter gazed out the window at the stars. It had been months since the ship left Earth, and though they had discovered new planets and strange life forms, nothing could prepare them for what they were about to find. "Captain," Lieutenant Sophia Wright called from the communications panel, breaking his thoughts. "We've detected an anomaly, something unusual. It's not a planet or a star." Ethan stood and walked toward her. On the screen, a massive, swirling object appeared floating in space with no clear source or explanation. It was a strange sight, glowing faintly, pulsing with an eerie energy. "What do you think it is?" Ethan asked, his voice low. "I'm not sure," Sophia replied, typing commands into the console. "But we've never seen anything like it before." Ethan made the decision to approach it, a mixture of curiosity and caution in his heart. They had encountered strange things on their journey, but this was different. It felt wrong. As they got closer, the ship's systems began to glitch. The lights flickered and the temperature dropped. It wasn't just the ship, it was the very fabric of space itself. The anomaly had a strange effect on everything it touched. "Report," Ethan ordered. "The ship's sensors are malfunctioning," said Lieutenant Mason Lee from the engineering station. It's draining the energy from everything around it." "Shut down everything we can," Ethan said urgently. "We need to figure this out." But before they could act, a pulse of energy shot out from the anomaly, striking the Starlight Voyager. The crew was thrown off balance as the ship shook violently. Then, everything went still. "Is everyone all right?" Ethan asked, his voice tight with concern. The crew nodded, but something felt off. They could no longer hear the hum of the engines. No sounds came from the ship's systems. It was as if all noise had been swallowed up by the void of space. "What happened?" Mason asked, looking around, his face pale. "I don't know," Ethan replied, scanning the now silent bridge. "But we need to investigate the anomaly before it affects us anymore." The crew moved cautiously to the observation deck, their footsteps echoing in the stillness. As they approached the windows, they saw the anomaly again, but this time it was different. It had expanded, growing larger and more intense. Suddenly, a crackling voice came through the communication system, breaking the silence. "This is the Galactic Federation. If you are receiving this message, stay away from the anomaly. It is not a natural phenomenon. It is a force capable of draining all life and sound in its path. Do not engage. I repeat, do not engage." Ethan's heart raced. The Federation had warned them. They had never encountered anything like this, and now they were caught in its grip. "We need to leave now," Ethan ordered, but as he turned to head back to the controls, something changed. The crew's voices, the sounds of footsteps, the beeping of consoles, it all vanished. The silence was suffocating. "We can't move," Sophia whispered. "The ship, it's frozen. Everything is frozen." Ethan tried to speak, but no words came out. The ship was still functional, but it was as if the universe itself had been muted. It was like someone had turned off the sound to the entire galaxy. Nothing. No sound. Just an endless, oppressive silence. "What is this?" Mason cried, his voice cracking. "Why can't we hear anything?" Ethan grabbed his communicator, but even that was useless. The silence was complete. No matter what they did, nothing could break it. They turned back to the window, staring at the anomaly. It was pulsing now, almost alive, drawing everything toward it. The stars themselves seemed dimmer, as if the anomaly was draining their light. The crew felt like they were suffocating, trapped in a universe that had lost its voice. Ethan's mind raced. He had heard rumors about similar events, ancient stories of a force so powerful that it could erase sound itself. But they were just stories, myths passed down by cultures long forgotten. Now, they were living it. "This is it," he said quietly. "The end of everything. We're caught in something beyond our understanding." The crew gathered around him, their faces filled with fear. They had no idea how to stop the anomaly, or even if it could be stopped. It was a force of nature, a cosmic event that seemed to defy the laws of space and time. "We can't just sit here," Sophia said. "We need to find a way to fix this. We have to try." Ethan knew she was right. But where could they turn? They had no way of communicating with anyone outside the Starlight Voyager. No way of knowing if anyone else was experiencing the same thing. Suddenly, Mason's voice broke the silence. "Wait. Look." The anomaly was changing again. This time, it was sending out pulses, waves of energy that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of space. The crew watched in horror as the pulses expanded, stretching outward, covering the entire galaxy. It was as if the universe itself was being swallowed up by the silence. Every star, every planet, every being disappearing into nothingness. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the pulses stopped. The silence remained. The universe was now a place where nothing existed but stillness, a place where life and sound no longer had a place. It was gone. ASF and stood alone in the silence, staring into the empty void. He realized the truth. They had entered a universe without sound. A universe without life. And there was no going back. The Orion ship glided through the silent vastness of space, its engines humming quietly as it passed by distant stars. Captain Liam Drake stood on the bridge, looking out at the endless blackness. The crew had been on a long mission, scanning unknown regions of the galaxy for new life and unexplored territories. Everything had been peaceful, until they received an unexpected signal from a strange, unknown source. "Captain," Lieutenant Ava Field said, glancing at the screen in front of her, "we've detected something. A ship. Or something that used to be a ship. It's not on any star charts. The energy readings are off the charts." Liam's interest peaked. "Bring it up on the main screen." A strange, dark silhouette appeared on the display. It was enormous, hovering in space with no visible source of propulsion. It looked like an ancient ship, but its design was unlike anything they had ever seen. "Should we approach it?" Ava asked, a hint of uncertainty in her voice. Liam hesitated for a moment, then gave the order. "Yes, prepare to dock. Let's see what we're dealing with." As the Orion moved closer, something felt wrong. The air on the bridge grew cold, and a subtle sense of unease began to fill the room. They docked with the mysterious vessel, and the crew prepared to board. Inside the strange ship, everything was eerily silent. There were no sounds, no hum of machinery, just an unnatural stillness. The walls were covered with unfamiliar symbols, glowing faintly, almost like they were alive. As they moved deeper into the ship, they came to a massive room where the air was thick with a strange energy. At the center of the room, a large crystalline structure pulsed with a dim, eerie light. Ava moved closer. "What is this thing?" she whispered. "I'm not sure," Liam said, his voice low. "But it feels like it's waiting." Before anyone could react, the ship's lights flickered, and the crystal began to glow brighter. The entire ship seemed to vibrate with energy, as though it were alive. Liam could feel the strange power radiating from the crystal, and for a moment he felt a strange sense of dread. Then, without warning, a voice echoed through the ship. It was a soft whisper at first, then it grew louder and louder. "No laughter. No joy. Only silence. The crew froze. The voice sounded ancient, but filled with pain, as though it had been trapped in the ship for eons. It was clear now the crystal wasn't just some artifact. It was the source of the voice, the source of this ship's power. "Captain," Ava said, her voice trembling, I think it's trying to take away everything. It's controlling our emotions." Liam turned to her, feeling the weight of her words. "What do you mean?" "It's erasing everything that makes us human," she explained. "It's stealing our joy, our laughter. I can feel it already. It's like I can't smile anymore, or even find something funny." The crew began to panic. One by one, they started to realize what was happening. The humor, the lightness, the joy that made life worth living, all of it was slipping away. The very thing that had always kept them going was disappearing, replaced by a heavy, unshakable silence. Liam tried to speak, but his voice sounded hollow, as though the ship was absorbing his every word. "We have to stop this," he said firmly, but even he couldn't shake the feeling of hopelessness that was slowly taking over him. He could feel his own joy fading away. The voice in the ship grew louder, more forceful. "End the laughter. End the joy. End the noise. Only silence remains." The crew members began to argue. "We can't just leave," said Officer Mark Jensen, his eyes wide with fear. "We need to figure out how to stop this before it takes everything from us." But it was too late. The more they stayed in the ship, the more the silence took hold of them. The walls seemed to close in, and their laughter, once a simple and cherished thing, was becoming harder and harder to remember. Liam knew they had to act quickly. "We need to destroy the crystal," he said. "That's the only way to break the hold it has on us." They quickly moved toward the crystal, but as they approached it, the ship's power intensified. The walls shook, and the air grew colder. The voice of the ship grew louder, now almost deafening. "You cannot stop it. It is already done. The laughter is gone." The crew's resolve began to weaken. They felt it, the loss of joy, the fading of life's simplest pleasures. But Liam wouldn't give up. He grabbed a piece of equipment from his belt and smashed it into the crystal. There was a blinding flash of light. For a moment, everything was still. The voice fell silent. The ship seemed to hold its breath. Then the crystal shattered, sending out a wave of energy that knocked everyone off their feet. As the energy dissipated, the ship's systems began to restart. The walls stopped shaking, and the eerie silence lifted. But the damage had been done. The crew felt exhausted, drained. Their laughter, once so easy and natural, was gone. It had been replaced by a deep, overwhelming emptiness. They returned to the Orion, each of them struggling to grasp the magnitude of what had happened. They had stopped the power, but at what cost? The laughter was gone. The joy had been stolen from them, and they weren't sure if they could ever get it back. Captain Liam Drake stood on the bridge, staring out into the vastness of space. The galaxy was quiet, but it wasn't just the stars that were silent. It was the whole universe. Something had been lost, and he wasn't sure they would ever find it again. And so, they continued their journey, each of them haunted by the echo of what they had lost, knowing that, for the first time in their lives, the world was a much quieter place. Captain Rachel Carter gazed at the stars from the observation deck of the Endeavour. The universe stretched out in front of her, vast and beautiful, yet something felt different. It had been months since the ship had ventured into deep space, and though they had discovered new planets and distant galaxies, there was an unsettling feeling in the air, a sense that something was not right. "Captain," Lieutenant Alex Harlow called out from his station. "I'm picking up a strange signal. It's faint, but it's definitely something." Rachel stood up, moving toward him. "Show me." On the screen, a swirling mass of energy appeared, floating in the middle of space. It was dark, almost like a black hole, but with strange, shifting colors that seemed to pulse with an unnatural rhythm. It wasn't a natural phenomenon, that much was certain. "We need to check this out," Rachel said. "Set a course, Alex." As the Endeavour approached the anomaly, the crew couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The ship's systems began to glitch slightly, the lights flickering, and a coldness crept through the air. Rachel ordered the crew to prepare for an investigation, but deep down, she could sense something was wrong. "We've reached the anomaly, Captain," Alex said, his voice tight with worry. "It's not like anything we've ever encountered." Rachel nodded. "All right, prepare to dock. We'll investigate further." The air inside the anomaly felt different. The temperature was dropping rapidly, and a heavy, thick silence settled over the crew. The Endeavour docked with what appeared to be a derelict station floating inside the swirling mass of energy. Inside the station, everything was still. The crew moved cautiously, their footsteps echoing in the silence. There was no hum of machinery, no life signs, just an eerie quiet. As they ventured deeper into the station, they found walls covered with strange marking symbols that seemed to shift and change the longer they looked at them. "It's almost as if this place doesn't belong here," Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Like it's from another time, or even another reality." Rachel's heart raced as she took in the scene. Something felt off, something beyond the cold and the silence. The crew reached the central chamber, where a massive, glowing orb hovered at the center of the room. It pulsed with a strange, hypnotic light, casting an unsettling glow across the walls. "I don't like this," said Dr. Clara Jensen, the ship's medical officer. "This place, it feels like it's pulling something out of me." Before anyone could respond, the orb emitted a low hum, and the room seemed to darken. The crew staggered back, startled by the sudden change in atmosphere. The hum grew louder, and the symbols on the walls began to glow brighter, flashing in a pattern that made Rachel's head spin. Then, the voice came. It was soft at first, like a whisper, but it quickly grew louder, echoing in the minds of the crew. "You have come," the voice said, sending a chill down their spines. "You are too late. The joy is already gone." Rachel's pulse quickened as the crew exchanged confused looks. The voice sounded ancient, filled with a deep sorrow. "What do you mean?" she demanded, though she already feared the answer. "The joy of the universe is fading," the voice continued. "I was created to feed on it. It is disappearing, slipping away with each passing moment." As the voice spoke, Rachel noticed something strange. A sense of emptiness was creeping over her, a feeling that grew stronger by the second. She turned to see the rest of the crew, their faces pale, their eyes vacant. They were losing something essential. The voice spoke again, its tone now almost mocking. "Do you feel it? The laughter is fading. The joy that once filled the universe is no more. And now, you will all lose it, just as it was taken from others. How do we stop this?" Rachel demanded, her voice shaking. She could feel it now too, the joy, the lightness that had always been a part of her, slipping away like sand through her fingers. It was as if the universe itself had gone quiet, leaving nothing but an unshakable sadness. "You cannot stop it," the voice answered coldly. "It has already begun. You are too far gone. It will spread. The laughter of every living thing, the joy of existence, it will vanish, one by one, until nothing remains but silence." The crew's faces were blank now. They no longer seemed capable of understanding, let alone fighting back. Rachel gritted her teeth, refusing to give in to the suffocating silence that was taking over. "Get to the ship," Rachel ordered, snapping the crew out of their trance. "We need to leave. We have to stop this before it spreads." They rushed back to the Endeavour, but even as they boarded, Rachel could feel the pull of the darkness behind them. It was as if the ship itself was losing its vitality. The lights flickered more often now, and the hum of the engines seemed muffled, distant. "Captain," Alex said, his voice filled with panic, "it's already spreading." The silence, the emptiness, it's everywhere. Rachel's mind raced as she realized the truth. The anomaly had not just stolen joy from the crew, it was spreading across the galaxy, draining every living thing of its laughter, its happiness, until nothing was left but an endless, consuming void. "Brace for impact," Rachel ordered as she fought to steer the ship away from the anomaly's influence. But even as she navigated the Endeavour away, she felt the weight of despair pressing down on her. She knew that the galaxy, the universe, was changing. The joy that had once filled it was disappearing, replaced by a suffocating silence that no one could escape. And as they fled, Rachel realized the truth. They might be the last to feel the joy, the last to laugh. And even if they survived, they might never know what it felt like to laugh again.